And just to brief you a little bit on a description on the this webinar, is actually a joint collaboration between ILD Kedah together with our Akademi Pengajian Bahasa Kedah, and our speakers, of course, will be from APB Kedah as well. Right, so my name is Rafidah binti Amat, and I will be moderating the session together with my Sifu, Ms. Chui. She will be the speaker, of course. And before anything else, I would like to welcome everyone. If you, if you like to invite your friends, right, or other lecturers, please feel free to share the links, right, so that you could join the Google Meet session, or you could also watch us live from FB Live, and we also have YouTube live channel. You can just search on the ILD Kedah. All right. Regarding the attendance, it will be shared later on. I think will be at the end of the session, and feel free to ask if I missed out on the attendance as well. Right, and what else? And also, please feel free to share your thoughts, your ideas, your insight, and also Q&A session. It's at any time at all. Please use the chat box that we have in Google Meet section. If you're in the YouTube live channel, please use the chat box over there. And then for Facebook, we have comments. However, I think for the comments, I could not reply because I don't have any Facebook account, but we will have our technician to reply on that. So please wait if I miss some of your comments and whatnot. All right, so let's go and introduce our speaker for today. All right, so we've known each other, I think about like 10, 11 or 13 years since I started working in UiTM Kedah, 2008 and 2009. Right, so I may look young, and Miss Ho as well. She's really young if you see her face to face. Anyway, so she was my mentor, and I still consider her as my mentor in terms of her work ethics. Superb, right? And regarding for her expertise, she's good in experts in plagiarism. She had done her research recently basically on plagiarism, and I did as well. I think not with her, but I think a lot of my interest actually similar towards Miss Ho's research interest. She has also published I think 6 or 7 books, mostly on grammar, and I think also on writing, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Miss Ho?
7 books on grammar, and it's connected to writing and reading.
I see. So if you're here to, to share your thoughts and ideas on proofreading, you are actually on the right track. All right. So I think without further ado, without wasting much time, I think let's invite our beloved speaker for today, Ms. Ho Chui, to present her presentation. Please welcome Ms. Ho.
Thank you very much, Rafidah, for your kind words. All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for making time, all right, to attend this sharing session, actually. I have been a language editor or language reviewer, right? I think that's what they call us sometimes, for I think the last 33 years or so since I started working in UiTM, or in ITM when I first joined, right? It was still ITM. And I've looked at various kinds of works like journal articles, reports, meetings. What else have I read? Thesis, dissertations, conference papers, right? Proceedings. Reports would be like the AKNC reports or the self-review reports. And more recently, I've been looking at MOOCs, micro-credentials. So I've looked at various kinds of work, student work, right, definitely, right? There are project papers, there are left behind industry reports and so on. So I've come across so many different types of errors. And sometimes I ask myself, did the authors or the writers actually proofread the work before submission, before sending it up for assessment and so on? Because some of the work that I've seen is, I mean, the errors are so numerous. There are so many errors that it makes the message quite difficult to understand, right? And as a content reviewer, sometimes I will actually reject papers because I don't understand what has been written. So proofreading is a very important stage of writing or process of writing, which should not be missed even if you are short of time. All right. So today I'm just going to share some tips based on my knowledge and experience. So just allow me a minute to share my screen. All right. I hope it works. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm from the Academy of Language Studies, all right? So if you are from the Academy of Language Studies, then I hope that this will be like a refresher course for you. Some, how do you say it? Some things that you may have forgotten when you want to do proofreading. And if you're from the other faculties and so on, so I hope that you learn something from me today. All right, so let's start. So the overview for today's webinar, I'm going to talk about the why, right? Why do we need to proofread? Then, of course, when should we proofread? And this is a very common question that I get. Are editing and proofreading the same? What are the common errors to look out for while proofreading? And finally, I'll be looking at which free online tools should we use to help save our time and, of course, hopefully improve our writing. All right. So those are the things that I'll be looking at. So first question, why do we need to proofread? So I would say that if our writing contains numerous errors, all right, such as grammar errors or spelling mistakes, wrong use of punctuation, choice of word which is inaccurate, definitely, right, it will affect our readers' perception about our professionalism. Our reputation is at stake, right? People will question our authority and also our credibility. So it's really important that we submit or we share work which is error-proof, error-free, all right, as much as possible, okay? So this is because if there are so many errors in our work, so instead of focusing on the content or on what we're trying to say, our readers may actually focus on our mistakes. And the mistakes could be very, how do you say, glaring sometimes. And, you know, it's like even a primary school student may actually be able to see the mistake, right? So it's going to be very embarrassing. Okay, now, of course, our careless errors, right, will definitely distract the readers and it will cause them to lose interest in what we have to say. And that would not be good, isn't it? We have something to share with this great idea, but because of our language, we are not able to convey our message, right, clearly and make it easy for the readers to understand. Okay, right. So next, when should we proofread? I would definitely recommend that you do your proofreading after you have completed your final draft, just before you send it out for publication or just before you do your presentation or just before you submit it for your assessment, all right? So proofread a few days or if you have the time, a week before the deadline, all right? Before you share it with the world. So if you're really short of time, at least a day, right, before you have to submit. Okay, now this is my suggestion, yeah. So if possible, right, you need to really plan, right, your work so that you have enough time to proofread at least 4 times on different days. All right, you don't proofread on the same day and that's it once and you're done. That will not be good. Like even for me, right, after proofreading for so many years, it takes me at least 3 days. All right, I'll read it, the paper or whatever is given to me. I'll read it for at least 3 times, right, before I send it back. So on different days, you will focus on different things. For example, on one day, you look at grammar. Another day, you might look at spelling and word choice, all right? And then finally, you might check for punctuation errors. Or some people would like to do, let's say, if you know that your error is normally on grammar, okay, then you do grammar first, all right? And then if you think your least problem would be spelling because you have spell checker, so you can do spelling last, all right? So it depends on your common errors, okay, which one you should check first. You should do that first, all right, the ones that you always make errors in. And of course, try not to proofread right after completing the draft, because if you have been working on a draft for a couple of days, or some of us work on it for a month or a few weeks, we are so close to our work, right? We will not be able to see our mistakes. So it's better, or if you can spare a day, okay, leave your work, put it aside, and then look at it again, yeah? Or if you're really short of time, then at least take a short break of at least 15 to 30 minutes, walk away from the work, have a cup of coffee, you know, watch a short comedy, you know, look at your WhatsApp messages, whatever, and then go back to your draft, all right? Because if you're really short of time, at least 15 to 30 minutes before you do your proofreading. But I hope that you will plan your work in such a way that you actually have enough time to do a good piece of work that is, how do you say, easy to read, easy to understand, and a joy to read, all right? Error-proof, error-free. Okay, those are my suggestions. So, next question. Are editing and proofreading the same? What do you think? Audience, do you think it's the same or not? Think about it. Right, let's look at editing. So when we look at the word editing, people think that it's the same as proofreading, but it's not actually, yeah? When you do editing, you are looking at the whole piece of work. Now, when we say the whole piece of work, if it's a journal article, right? So I assume that most of the audience would be lecturers, all right, or academicians. So we have got our KPI. We have to write at least 3 articles a year and get it published in Scopus, all right, or index journals and so on, right? So if you're submitting a journal article, right, you will be looking at the title. Don't miss out your title. You would look at your abstract, the keywords, right? Your selection of the keywords. And then definitely you'll be looking at the structure, right? And certain journals would provide you with guidelines. So you have to check your work with the guidelines. And if a template is given, then use the template as well, right? So those are the things that we will do. We will be looking at when we're editing. And then, of course, we'll be looking at our sources, all right? The use of credible sources. Is the source updated, the most recent one? Or are they really outdated, right? So that's what you do when you're editing, right? Checking your sources. And then, of course, if you're using sources, then you need to check your in-text citations and make sure that the references match. And I think a lot of you might want to opt for the free online citation generators like Zotero, Cite This For Me, BitMe, and so on, right? Well, they are helpful, right, to a certain extent, but remember that they are not 100% accurate, right? So you still have to check them manually after you have done the citations using your citation generators. So even Mendeley, right, I've noticed that there are errors as well, okay? And no, I'm not so sure, but I've gone through work prepared using Mendeley, and the references and citations do actually have errors as well. Okay, and when you do editing, what do you actually do? You should review, you revise, yeah? You change, you add, you delete, right? Could be words, could be sentences, or it could even be paragraphs, all right? So you may want to move your paragraphs, right, from the top to the bottom maybe. Some paragraphs may need to be removed, all right, not really necessary, or you may have to rewrite certain sections. Maybe you need to rewrite your conclusions, or you may have to rewrite your discussion section. So that's editing, okay, looking at the whole piece of work. Whereas, right, proofreading, it's the nitty-gritty details, all right? We're looking at those small details, the errors which a lot of people will miss if you do not actually pay attention, right? So things like grammar, right? Spelling, okay? So although we have grammar checkers and spelling checkers, right? You still have to do your own checking manually, all right? So the use of punctuation, capitalization, typing errors, all right? Where you transpose the letters like from and form, all right? Very common. or like the words like for, right? The, okay, most of the time we type them wrongly, isn't it? Word choice, right? Choosing your words very carefully. Homophones, malapropisms, redundancies, right? Using words which are which have the same meaning twice, right? Transitions are important. Choosing the right transitions, right? Or some people use the word discourse markers or linkers, all right? Then these two last two are actually very important. Yeah, some writers have lots of sprawling sentences. The sentences are really long, very hard to understand. But some writers are the other way around. They have very short sentences, so we call them choppy sentences. So when we proofread, we look for all these. So these are some of the aspects which I'll be going to talk about in more detail, yeah? Right, okay, so proofreading for common errors. First things first, let's look at the most, how do you say, often committed error with regards to tenses, all right? So when you are writing a journal article, for example, right? The first thing that your reader will do is read your abstract, isn't it? All right, we look at the title, we say, okay, sounds interesting. We will read the abstract. So you have to make sure that the abstract that you write in about, what, 200 words or so, 250 words maybe, it should have the gist, all right, of your whole article in as, how do you say, clearly written as possible with, if possible, no errors, all right? So this is what I suggest, that when you check your abstract, make sure that when you are talking about or when you're writing about something general, right? Facts which are general facts, knowledge that people should know, then you should use the present tense, okay? So if you don't know what's the present tense, you really need to brush up. Okay, now we also use the present tense when we refer to our own research paper. So we will write, our paper is about, our paper focuses on, you are referring to your paper. It's the, how do you say, the paper that you're talking about or you are going to explain. So it's in the present tense. But when you're talking about, when you're writing about the purpose or the aim of your study, right, then you could use either the present tense or the past tense, all right? So, but when it comes to your methods or the methodology section, then you definitely have to use the past tense, but because you've already done it, right? It's already over. And of course, when you are reporting your major findings, you're highlighting the major findings, then past tense as well. And when it comes to the conclusion, that the important conclusions, the major ones or the implications, then we would go for the present tense. All right, now you will notice that the abstract is actually, all right, taken from the whole paper, right? So when you're writing an introduction, the literature review, the methodology, the results, the discussion section, and the conclusion, these are, how do you say, the longer sections of your paper, they are going to be very similar. Yes.
We have question from Mr. Wong asking, yes, Portia, we use simple or easy sentences in our writing? I think it's for the previous slide.
So talking about this one, isn't it? Abstract, sorry. Yes. So here, when the abstract is written last, isn't it? After you've written the whole paper, you will write the abstract. So you actually can take sentences from your paper, all right? So if you are writing the whole paper in, what, 10,000 words, when you're doing an abstract, it's about 250 words. So you would, sometimes you could take some sentences from the paper that you've written. But if it's for the abstract, because it's very short, you would have to shorten your sentences. Have a variety. Some sentences should be longer, some sentences should be short. Sometimes we use short sentences for emphasis, all right? So it depends on what you're trying to convey. So have a variety, some short sentences, some long sentences, because if it's all very short, it's very choppy, we call it choppy, it's unpleasant to read, right? And it shows that you are not very, how do you say, proficient with the language. So have a variety. That would be my suggestion. And of course, don't use bombastic words, right? You want the words to be easy to understand. So depending on the audience that you're writing for, so if it's journal articles, then it has to be formal. The vocabulary that you choose would be something that is suitable for academicians to read. it all depends on the context, who you're writing for. So your audience is very important. You have to keep that in mind. I hope that answers the question.
And we have another from Ms. Izrahayu asking for, can you share the slide?
Share the slides. Okay, later. After the presentation is over, we'll I think the
it's okay. I think because I have the copy, so I think I'll just share the Google Drive link. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Rafidah. All right. So I'll move on to the next slide. Yeah. All right. So when you're writing, all right.
So again, another question. Okay. How do we know our choice of words or spelling is correct for a particular journal? Example, color versus color, behavior or behavior, IOR.
Okay, all right. It depends. Okay, we either have the American spelling or you have the British spelling, right? So you must know who you're writing for and which journal you're sending it to, right? So if your journal is based in UK, all right, then probably they will ask you to write using British English. So then your spelling will be based on British spelling, like color is COLOUR there. Actually, that's what I'll be talking about later. But if you're writing and the journal that you're sending to is based in America, for example, then you would probably have to use American English then, right? And a choice of words as well, because American English and British English choice of words will depend, okay? So the spelling for, let's say, curb, KERB, or is it CURB, for example, right? What else? Favorite, right? Or words like honor. What else? You know, there are variations between American English and British English. So you have to do your homework. Read the journal that you intend to submit to. Look at the guidelines that they've given you and follow those guidelines very carefully. Okay, all right. Any other questions? No?
No more,
okay. All right, okay. Let's move on to the introduction, right? So I would suggest that when you are writing your introduction, when you're giving facts or background information regarding the research topic that you're writing about, normally we will use the present tense, all right? Because we want to show that this is a topic which is still important, all right? So that's why you're doing research on that topic. Now, you should use present perfect, which is different from present simple present, right? When you refer to prior research or previous research that has been done, but the results are still relevant. So a sample sentence would be something like this, yeah? Numerous studies have shown that, right? So have shown here, it's present perfect. So again, I've mentioned just now, if your tenses are the wrong tenses, it will change the meaning. All right. If you choose to use the wrong tense, it will actually change the meaning. So do be very careful about the choice of tenses. Okay. Now, then when you go on to your literature review, most of the time we would use the past tense because you're reviewing research done by other people in the past. So for example, you would say Johnson 2018 found that. Right? So found is the past tense. But you could also use the present perfect, for example, as Johnson 2015 has emphasized, because you want to show that what this person has said is still relevant now, right? So present perfect is used for a different reason. Okay, now the present tense, all right, I've written here, if the finding still holds true, for example, X is an effective treatment for Y. So you can write it this way. You can put it at the end, okay, your citation, you put Johnson 2012, or you can put it this way, isn't it? Right, so have a variety here when you're writing your literature review. Don't always put according to, especially when you're writing for index journals, right? If you use according to too often, they will actually ask you to rewrite because they don't really like that. All right, so when you go on to your methodology, for example, most of the time it would be in the past tense, yeah? Because it's something that you have already done, you have conducted the research. So you might write something like this. The control group was, or questionnaires were used to, all right? So use the past tense, whether it's in the passive voice or in the active voice. Nowadays, we actually encourage writers to use active voice, okay? But sometimes you still need to use passive. So looking at the context is important, yeah? Think about it. All right, what about the results section where you report your findings? Normally it's past tense, all right? So it was found that, all right? Or you could also use present tense. when you refer to the tables or the figures that you've prepared, for example, you may say table 3 shows or table 3 presents, all right? So do choose your tenses very carefully so that the readers, right, understand what you're trying to say. Now, when it comes to the discussion section where you discuss your findings, normally we would use the present tense, all right, to show that it is something that is important. You're talking about now. So what does it show? What is the implication, for example, all right? So the results indicate. The findings are similar to, if you're comparing it with some previous research that was carried out. So choice of a tense is normally present tense, okay? But of course, if you're referring to previous research, you may actually use past tense as well, yeah? So when you finally come to the conclusion section of your paper, again, present tense would be a good choice, all right? So the study confirms that, or if you're talking about, if you're suggesting further research, you could say further studies are needed. So it is present tense, all right? So when what tense to use depends on the meaning that you're trying to convey, and the wrong choice of tense would actually convey a different meaning. So do be very careful when you're writing. Check your verb tenses carefully, all right? Okay. Yes.
Okay,
Any
Ms.
question?
Ho, another
Yes.
question from Mr. Wong again. How to differentiate between past, present perfect, or present in LR, literature review?
Okay, like I've mentioned just now, normally, all right, when you're just reporting or how do you say, summarizing or paraphrasing, right, in your literature review, we would use past tense, all right? But if the finding or what you have found is still important till now, all right, till now. Let's say the research was carried out in 2012, for example, by Johnson, right? But what he has found, what he has suggested is still important, still holds true, then we would use the present tense, okay? Or you could use the present perfect. So it depends on what you're trying to emphasize, what you're trying to show in the literature review. So normally it's past tense, but if you want to show that this particular research that was carried out by a particular person is still relevant, is still important, it's still true, even until now in the year 2022, then the present tense or the present perfect should be used. Okay, all right. So that would be my general guideline.
Okay, another one. Can we use all past tense in a literature review?
You could, but surely you would come across some articles that would have some findings or some conclusions which are still true up to now, right? So have a variety. So when you're looking at past research, right, surely there are some that would still be relevant till today, isn't it? You could, I'm sure you could find one or two to include, and that would be, it shows that you are able to actually read a lot to be able to actually find that there are some research that are still relevant today, right? And the correct use of tense would show that you know, all right, that what was written in the year 2012 is still relevant today. All right, so present perfect, present tense. If you think that that particular information is still relevant, still holds true. All right. So you should have a mixture of tenses. Okay. Right. Anything else?
Excuse me, Miss Ho.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Sore throat. My name is
right.
Asia.
Okay.
When you were talking about methodology just now, between the differences between active voice and passive voice, can you maybe probably show one example to know when do we use active and when do we use passive voice in methodology?
If you're writing using APA style, right, they would actually prefer active voice. So you need to actually find out from the journal that you want to send to, do they prefer active voice or passive voice? Because if it's writing for APA style journals, they would actually require the active voice. So for example, even APA styles encourage you to use the word I, right? So for example, if you are writing, you could say, I conducted the research within these parameters, or I conducted the research in 3 months, or the questionnaire that I prepared, right, was sent out, right? So when you say was sent out, that is the passive voice. But you could say, I sent out the questionnaire. That would be the active
Simple
voice.
past tense, yeah.
Yeah, past tense, active voice. I sent out the questionnaire via email, via WhatsApp, I sent out. But if you say the questionnaires were sent out, then it's the passive voice, right? In the past, okay?
So the APA prefers active voice.
And they actually suggest that you use, you don't have to use words like the author. You can actually say I. Right?
All right.
You say I. Okay. All
Great.
right.
Thank you.
Good question. Okay. Right. Any other questions?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. So I'll move on to my next slide. Questions can come, okay, as I go along. Now, this is from APA. I've taken this from the APA website. I hope you're familiar with APA 7th edition, all right? So they have come up with some new things, the guidelines. So this is what I would say that when you're writing for APA style journals, please refer to this one, okay? So it is like very nicely summarized for you with the examples there, okay? All right. So I will not spend time on this because you can actually go and Google this yourself. All right. So shall I move on? Is it okay? Can I move on?
Yes, please, Ms. O.
Okay, good. Because there's a lot to share actually. All right. Proofreading for common errors, subject-verb agreement. This is the very basic that you should get right. Okay. Now, a lot of people always get the subject-verb agreement wrong. If you're using Microsoft Word editor, right, it should be able to actually check the errors for you. But as usual, sometimes the editor will actually miss it as well. So please make sure that you check and make sure that you know the subject is singular, then the verb should also be singular. Or if the subject is plural, then the verb should also be plural. So a simple example here, yeah? Johnson has. Johnson is singular, so has. But if it's Johnson at all, meaning more than one, then you have to change it to have. All right. Or you have this kind of sentence, the artist and singer. Now, notice that it's is. Now, many of you will say, isn't that two people? No, it's not. If you read it this way, the artist and the singer, then you are referring to two, it's are. Do you notice the error here? If you put are here, it's wrong, yeah? The artist and singer, if you put are, it's not right because it's actually one and the same. But if you put the artist and the singer, then you're talking about two people, all right? Okay, so this is something that I see very often. So be very careful, all right? Now, another example that I have, more examples actually, but I tried to cut it down. So things like using the word either or, okay? So when you have either or neither nor, yeah? Remember that the subject is the one that is nearer to the verb, all right? So the students here is actually the subject, not the teacher, okay? Now, if you have sentences like this, where you have one of the respondents, now respondents is not the subject, because actually the real subject is one, all right? The emphasis here, one. So one of the respondents was, your real subject is one. Or if you have words like each or every, all right? Each of the participants or every participant, all right? Every participant. So every or each is always singular. So each has. But when you're using a number here actually means some. So some people are. But when you say the number, you're referring to one number, a figure, all right? So then it is has. Not people, yeah? The subject is not people. But if you write something like this, the student, as well as his parents, is excited. Why? Because the subject is the student. If you have as well as or together with, these are what we call additional information, not the subject of the sentence. So the real subject is the one before it, all right? If you have the students with an S, then it will be are, all right? So depending on the subject here. Is that clear? Any question? All right, none?
No, Miss O.
Okay, good. Let's move on then. Noun-pronoun agreement. Or should we say noun-pronoun disagreement? All right, so whenever you use nouns, right, remember that if you're using the pronoun, then the noun, okay, and the pronoun has to match. Okay, so if the noun is singular, then the pronoun that you use will also have to be singular as well. All right. So whether it's the first person, second person, or third person, well, it all depends. All right. You have to look at it carefully. So I've got two simple examples here. So the noun here is accountants. Good accountants look out for the interests of their clients. Now you can't change this to his or her clients. Don't do that. All right. So change it to their clients, because here we do not know whether the accountants are the gender, right? The gender, whether it's male or female. So use their clients. All right. Okay. Now here you have the word every, right? Remember, just now I said every is always singular. So here the pronoun will have to match singular, right? Every is singular, so it's its. Every cow, goat, and horse, don't change it to their, right? Because every means it's singular, so it's its. And don't put it apostrophe s, yeah? It's wrong. It's its, right? Possessive form, all right? The pronoun, okay? So these are what we say common errors, okay, that I see very often. All right, more examples. Okay, now this one is from APA. Yeah? So APA style endorses the use of the singular they, all right? Because according to the APA, it's inclusive, all right? Because we don't want to put either it's a his or a her, a she or a he, right? It's very clumsy that way, isn't it? So, so according to the APA, we do not have to make assumptions about gender, okay? So they would be genderless, all right? So example, this is every patient. Now, even though you have every patient here, right? Singular, but this is what they suggest. Every patient got a COVID-19 test kit delivered to them, not him, delivered to her, all right? So instead of putting him or her, then just go ahead and use them. Now, each respondent, again, it also because even though it's singular, but when you write, when you're using the pronoun, APA says use the word their. Each respondent answered their questionnaire. All right, this is APA style, okay? No one again is singular, right? No one in the experimental group has, yeah, singular, has. No one has completed, but the pronoun, their test, okay? So that's APA style, all right? So this is something that you have to be aware of here when you're writing to journals using APA style. What's next? Articles and prepositions. Again, a very common error, especially for people whose first language do not actually have and the, isn't it? So I find that my students, all right, normally have a problem with this. Yeah, articles, the use of articles. So it's so common that I see this. He is a Malaysian. All right, now it's not right. Yeah, he is a Malaysian. It should be he is a Malaysian scientist, for example, because Malaysian is an adjective, right? So he is a Malaysian scientist, yes. But he is a Malaysian, no. He is Malaysian, yes. All right, you don't have to there. He is Malaysian. He is a Malaysian scientist. So do be careful when to use the when to not use the Again, if you're not very good, check the grammar handbooks and so on. All right. So things like this, yeah. Nowadays, you see a lot of this organization, isn't it? The World Health Organization. All right, you need the in front. The Chinese Chamber of Commerce, for example, right? The CCC, or the Malaysian Football League, the MFL. All right. So we always have the in front. All right. Or N. All right. I'm sure all of you know that it depends on the pronunciation, whether it's a vowel or not, all right? So we will say it's an LCD display, the L sound, a UK, this U, right? A UK-based company, a URL, right? But you say NGO, but we say a non-governmental organization. So when you're writing, yeah, if you're using the short form, it's N, yeah? And LCD. Okay, so do be very careful. All right, any question?
Okay, Miss Ho, we have from Mr. Wong. If we know the gender, I think this one is for the previous slide. And how about if he is a Malaysian citizen?
He is a Malaysian citizen, correct? A Malaysian citizen, right? Just like this, we change this to he is a Malaysian citizen. Yeah, change the scientist to citizen. So if you know the gender, if it's really important to point out the gender, because let's say your results show that males and females, right, they differ, okay, then you should use he, she, all right, because you want to show the difference between the genders, yes. But if gender is not important, then you do not have to mention the gender, then, well, don't have to mention the gender then, all right? So depending on the emphasis, what are you trying to emphasize? All right, anything else?
I think that's all.
All right, thank you. Let's move on then. More examples. Now, universities, right? Name of universities. So, do you say the Gallaudet University? No. If it's just university with the name like this, where they don't put the, we will just say Gallaudet University, but we will say the only liberal arts college. All right. You see the use of the for the deaf in the world. All right. So, you do not just simply put the all the time, or you take away all the words, okay, all the. So, when do you use the, when do you not use the, please go and refer to the grammar handbook, all right? Now, example, professor. You don't say the professor Aditi. You say the professor, yes, but if it is the name with the word professor, you will just say Professor Aditi Lahiri, teachers at Oxford. So you don't say teachers at the Oxford, right? Teachers at Oxford, because the word university is not there. But you will say the University of Oxford is one of the leading universities in the world. So you see, when to use the, when not to use the, there are lots of rules. So please do check out the grammar handbook. All right, go to a good grammar handbook, check it out. Okay, another example that I see a lot of students do this kind of writing. So you actually have to make sure that you write it carefully. So you will say, my 88-year-old grandmother is going to university to obtain her doctorate. But you say, my parents are going to the university to attend my convocation. All right. So you see, here you don't put going to the university, because this is general, just going to school, going to university, right? But when you're talking about your convocation, that will be your university, right? So they are going to the university. Okay. What about this one? The lawyer. The lawyer will go to prison for killing his wife. But you will say, the lawyer will go to the prison to see his client. All right? So it makes a difference, yeah? We'll go to the prison to see his client, but we'll go to prison, we'll go to jail for killing his wife. All right? So choice of when to use the, when not to use the. Please, Kate, when you're not sure, check it out. All right? Do not be lazy. Okay? Right? What's next? Prepositions now. So again, choosing your right preposition. Sometimes there is, how do you say, the same word, but when you're using it in a different sentence, you may actually have to use a different preposition, yeah? So despite of is wrong, yeah? Please do not put despite of. Actually, it is in spite of. So despite, you do not have of. It doesn't go together, all right? Now, look at this one, yeah? This is something that I see all the time. When you use the word lack, the new lecturers have a lack of experience. A lack here is a noun. The new lecturers lack experience. The lack here is a verb, right? So do you notice that? Lack of, but you say lack experience, but okay, you say lack experience in, right? Not on, okay? So when you choose a different preposition, then you are conveying a different meaning. So a very common one that I'm sure all of you are aware of, in time and on time. Very different, right? Meaning just in time for dinner, but she's always on time. She's never late, right? Okay, another example, this one. Students always get this wrong. The man ran to the police, all right, asking for help. Or you can say the man ran from the police, right, trying to escape from the police. So two very different meanings. So choice of preposition is really important. Okay. What's next? I have here more examples. The results of this research also emphasize on, you always say this, emphasize on, no, right? Instead, you should write, the results of this research also emphasize the importance. When you say emphasize, all right, you do not need an on, yeah? It's redundant, okay? All right? So this is a very common error that I see most of the time. And how do you say it? It's become so common, people think that it's correct, but it's not. Okay. Another example.
Miss Ho,
Yes, yes.
from Dr. Nur Hasniza, is it because of correct or just we use because instead of because of?
Instead, okay, wait, yeah. All right, let's go back to the slide. Because, okay, is it referring to this one? Emphasize, is that the one that she's asking about, this one?
I think it's instead of. Oh, it is.
Which slide was she talking about?
Instead of or because of?
Instead of or because of. Instead of is correct. All right. Instead of going to A, let's go to B. Instead of is correct. Because of, yeah, because of. I couldn't go because of something. I couldn't go because I was sick. Depending on the sentence that you're writing, yeah? So it depends on what you're writing. You have to look at the sentence. Then you choose whether it's with because of or is it just because. Okay? Right? Depends on what you're writing. If you just ask me like this, I need to actually see the sentence. All right? Okay. Let me continue with my next example. This one. Very common error that I see all the time. Okay, using the word between with to. Right? You can't say between and then you use to. Right? It should be from and to. Okay? Or if you want to use the word between, then it has to be between and. All right? Okay? So this could be like very minor to some of us, right? What's the difference? Right? Doesn't matter. It does because if you are like sending it to journals, let's say in the UK or in the US, right? Where you have the native speakers, when they read, it says, this is wrong, right? You don't say between two, right? You have to say between and, but you say from to. All right. So the, how do you say, the choice of words, right? Your prepositions doesn't sound natural to them. Okay. So just keep this in mind, yeah, when you're writing. What else? More examples. I think when we are writing, when we use the word similar, right? Some students like to put similar with. No, it's similar to. All right, you need to use the word similar to. What else? Oops. Sorry. Let's go to the previous slide, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. I'm at the wrong slide. What else? Let's end the show. Which slide was I supposed to be here, right? Yeah, okay, sorry. My mouse is not working very well today. Right, so the office workers' replies were similar to, right? So the word to, similar to. But if you say same, it's same as, right? But if you say different, it's different from. Okay, right? Similar to, same as, different from. Okay, keep that in mind. So choice of preposition, yeah, they come together. Similar to, same as, but different from, right? So what we call collocation, actually, yeah, the words that go together. Right, what else? More examples. The results of the current study are not consistent with, right? Not consistent with. But you will say differ from, right? But you also say in line with, okay? Consistent with, in line with, all right? Differ from. Now, if you're using the word correlated, right? You say correlated with, but related to, okay? Very common error. Correlated to, no. Correlated with. Related to, yes. Related with, no. Okay, right? So hopefully you will remember this when you're writing. What's next? Parallel structure. All right.
Miss Ho?
Yes.
From Dr. Muhammad Haris, as compared with versus as compared to?
Compared with, compared to. Compared with something, compared with someone, is it? Okay, again, it depends on what you're writing. Compare with something, compare with someone. I think that is what we normally do. Compare this with something, compare this with something. With something, compare this to something, isn't it? Compare it with someone. That is what we normally do. Compare with, compare to. Just like you say, you argue with someone, argue about something, isn't it? So the choice of the preposition depends on, sometimes you can use either one, right? Of or with, for example. Sometimes you can only use one. So again, the handbook must be a very good book to refer to, right, for the exact use. So you could also go to the thesaurus and so on, concordance, isn't it? Use the concordance, all right? They will show you the most commonly used sentences, the collocations and so on. So when you're not sure, do check it out, right? Just go online. There's so many resources that you can check on. Concordances would be good, right? Where they show you the sentences that uses the word compare. Do you put compare with or compare to and so on? The thesaurus will be helpful, or even dictionaries will be helpful. Okay, so it depends on what you're writing. Okay, is it comparing with a person or comparing with something? So the choice of word, the preposition would be different. But sometimes you can use either or. Okay, all right. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Ms. Ho.
All right. Okay. Like I was saying just now, right? The parallel structure. When you're using words like and, or, okay, not only but also either or, neither nor, both and, do be very careful because they are joining two clauses, right? So they should be the same, or they're joining two words or two phrases. So they should have the same grammatical form, right? So the example that I have here, something very simple. My brother likes football and playing rugby? No. So it should be football and rugby, all right? If you want to use playing here, then you could put my brother likes playing football, right? And rugby. You could put playing in front, yeah? What about this one? He is not only a great drummer, but also plays the piano well? No, because here you have a great drummer, so you have to change it to make sure that it is similar. So he is not only a great drummer, but also a talented pianist, for example, all right? Or you can say, he is not only a great drummer, but a great pianist as well, for example. Okay, all right. What about this one? Reading is easier than to write. No, no, no. Reading is easier than writing because you are using ing form here. So here you need the ing form as well. All right. So very common errors should not happen actually. All right. Okay. So question? No?
Yep.
Okay, good.
No.
Thank you. Right. What about this one?
Ms. Ho,
Yes.
from Technologist Muhammad, he mentioned that I just joined the session. What was the concordance that you recommended earlier?
Concordance. Okay, now if you Google, there are quite a number of concordances. Some are from the UK, I think. I think they also have one in America. All right. So if you Google concordance, CONCORDANCE, you should be able to find either the American one or the British one. All right. There are quite a number actually. All right. So it depends on whether you're writing using UK English or US English. Okay. So you choose the correct concordance. All right. Just Google. Okay. All right. I hope that answers the question. Right. The next one here, I'm going to talk about is a sentence fragment. Now, when we say it's a fragment, it means that it's actually a string of words that does not form a complete sentence. All right. It's like what we call hanging. It's incomplete. When we read it, we actually don't understand what they're trying to say. So this is something that quite common actually, especially my students, right? They always have sentence fragments. So the findings of the study were challenged by leading researchers in the field. Although this is not commonly known. To students, it's a complete sentence, but it's not. So what you need to do is you have to rewrite it. So I would suggest that you could actually just combine the this part, all right? So change it to don't put a full stop, change it to a comma, and then put although. Although this is not commonly known, all right, then it's a complete sentence, all right? Because if you just say, although this is not completely known, then I'm waiting for the rest. So what, all right? So it's better to actually join them together into one sentence, okay? Now, this one, I see this all the time among my students, right? So for example, writing and speaking, and they stop there. So I'll be like, writing and speaking, so what, right? Something is missing, isn't it? It should be, for example, then you must have subject and the verb. The respondents were weak in writing and speaking, for example. Or you should join the, for example, here to the sentence before it. You put a comma, put, for example, reading and speaking. Okay. For example, you could say, students complain that they are weak in various skills, comma, for example, writing and speaking. Yes, then it's a complete sentence. So it all depends on what you write and how you write it. So do not just put, for example, writing and speaking. It's incomplete, all right? So you can join it to the sentence that's earlier using a comma, or make sure that you start with a subject first, followed by a verb, and then write the rest of the sentence. You could say, for example, writing and speaking are the two problematic areas. Yes, yeah, writing and speaking could be the subject, are is the verb. So writing and speaking are the two problematic areas faced by students. Then it's correct, okay? So make sure your sentences are not hanging, all right, not incomplete. What about run-on sentences? Again, a very, very common error. When we say run-on sentences, right, there are actually two types. So they are actually sentences which are combining, right, two independent clauses, means two clauses that can stand on its own, right, without a coordinating conjunction. And for lecturers, to make it easy for you to remember the short form, fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, right? So we shorten it to fanboys, something easy for you to remember, okay? Or sometimes it's, okay, they just use a punctuation mark, all right? It's missing, okay? The punctuation mark is missing. They don't use a punctuation mark. So the first type of run-on sentences is what I would call the fused sentences, okay? They are fused together. So if you look at this sentence, it's really long. Researchers investigated several possible vaccines for the virus. Then they settled on one. Now, see, when you're reading, you actually automatically pause here, right? So actually, when you're doing proofreading, it's actually good to read your sentences aloud, because the time when you find that you pause, all right, before you can continue reading, that's the indication that you actually need something there. You need a punctuation mark there. So you could actually put semicolon, then you put the then, followed by the comma. Or you want to end the sentence, put a full stop, start with then, put a comma, all right? Or you could actually continue with, put a comma, and then, right, they settled on one. So there are actually many ways of changing, right, the sentence. So if we simply just put a comma, right, it's not actually correct, isn't it? Comma, and then they settled on one. That's better, all right? So this is just your choice. Do you want to do it this way? Do you want to do it this way? Or do you want to do it this way? They're all fine, right? They're all correct. Right, question? No?
No.
Okay, good. Let's move on then. This one, comma splices, all right? Again, it's a type of run-on sentences, yeah? So two complete sentences that are joined only with a comma. So don't do that, please, yeah? So two complete sentences, why? Look at it. The results of the study were inconclusive, yeah? It's a complete sentence, right? You understand it very well. Therefore, more research needs to be done on the topic. Another complete sentence, right? So you cannot just put a comma here. If you want to put a comma here, all right, it should be replaced with, all right, a semicolon. Okay, this one, yeah, semicolon, full stop and a comma. Then you put the comma after the word therefore, all right? Or why not start it as a new sentence? Put a full stop, put therefore, comma, more research needs to be done on the topic. Because if your sentences are too long, all right, you can actually shorten it. So this is the way you do it. But if you like it to do it this way, some students will put a comma here and they put another comma there, right? It's actually better to put semicolon, then you put a comma, all right? Or to be on the safe side, when you're not sure, put the full stop, then the comma goes after therefore, all right? just like however, therefore, as a result, right? You must always have a comma. Don't forget that. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Let's move on to modifiers. Modifiers are actually words that modify or describe, the wrong words. So we call them misplaced. They're put in the wrong place. So example here, crying on the examination table, the doctor. Now, when you read it this way, who is crying? You're telling me the doctor is crying, right? Which is not your meaning, right? So you have to change it. The doctor gave the small child crying on the table, right? Crying on the examination table. So who is crying? The small child is crying. So put them as close as possible, right, to one another. Okay, now this one, very hard to see for a lot of students. They can't see this. The researcher designed the experiment with an innovative approach. They see nothing wrong. The innovative approach here is actually by the researcher, right? So why not rewrite it and say, using an innovative approach, the researcher designed the experiment, all right? So here, the innovative approach is by the researcher. So the innovative approach, if you put it here, you're saying that the experiment used the innovative approach, but it's not the experiment can't do it. It's the researcher that did it, right? So put your modifier as close as possible to the word that is trying to modify. All right. So this is quite hard for a lot of students. They can't see it. All right. Okay. Another example that I have. Okay. Ali almost failed every exam he took. Now notice where I put almost. All right. So what does it mean? You're trying to tell me that Ali barely passed every exam. Almost failed, right? Barely passed, just managed. But if you put almost in a different place, Ali failed almost every exam, all right? Almost every exam. So what you're trying to tell me? Ali failed most of his exams and only passed a few, all right? Failed almost every exam. Almost failed. That's a difference, okay? So words like almost, only, all right? Do be very careful, where you put it. Okay, all right. So choose your placing, very carefully. All right, now what about dangling modifiers? Now, when we say dangling means there is no reference in the sentence. You are not telling us who you are referring to, all right? So for example, this one. After separating the participants into groups, group 1 was tested. So who tested? What is missing? You have to put the researchers tested group 1. So I see this all the time, all right? So when I see this, I say, who did the testing, right? So it's the researchers. The researchers tested group 1, right? Now, what about this one? To test hypothesis 1, the participants were divided into 2 groups. To test hypothesis 1, the participants were divided into 2 groups. Most of you will say, what's wrong? There's nothing wrong. Yes, there's something wrong because who divided them? It's the researchers, right? The researchers divided the participants into 2 groups. So this is always missing. I see this very, very often, right? Because we see this so often that it has become like, it must be correct because you see it so often, repeated in so many articles that you've read. But just because it's used so often doesn't make it correct, all right? So it's called the dangling modifier because there's no reference, all right? Who did the action? Okay, I hope that's clear. What's next? All right, this is on spelling, all right? Someone asked about spelling, isn't it? So be consistent. So do not mix up British and American spelling in your paper. Be consistent. So you can set it in your computer, right, to use British English or American English. So the default is always American English. So you can reset, change it to British English. So I'm sure you all know this, right? Spelling, T-R-E or is it T-E-R? All right? Like color, O-U-R or just O. Apologize, okay, the Z-E, right? British English, we use Z-E most of the time, or is it S-E? Most of the time it's S-E, but certain words we use both, acceptable, right? Organize, okay, we use both. Recognize, we also use both. But American English, they only use Z-E, All right, so for British English, sometimes we do use both. So when you're not sure, check the dictionary, please. Yeah, analyze, paralyze, catalyze, always SE, but American English, always ZE. Okay, now defense, yeah, SE, offense, SE, right? License, noun, license, verb. Do you see? CE, SE, right? So American English is always SE, whether it's a noun or it's a verb. Okay. Traveled. American English is different. Yeah, they have single L. Traveled, double L. Fueling, counselor, double L. Right? American English, single L. But when it comes to the word enroll, British English is single L. Fulfill, single L. Installment, single L. Skillful, here. All right? Single L. But American English, double L, double L, double L, skillful, skill, SKILL. Right? See that? So do be careful. What about ton? TONNE. American English, TON. Judgment, we spell it with an E. American English, no E. TV program, double M. Computer program, single M. American English doesn't matter, it's always single M. All right, so these are just some examples. So when you're not sure, check it out, please. Yeah, there are other words that we actually spell differently as well. Okay, right, I hope it's clear. Let's move on. Question?
Okay, so another question from Mr. Muhammad Zahid. For UK English, can you please advise on the usage of percent space and percent, and when should we use the percent symbol or percent in reporting? Thank you.
Okay, all right. Now, when you're writing percent, right? Some handbooks will say percent is two words. Percent, that's the space. But some handbooks say it's acceptable to put percent as one word. But if it's percentage, it's always one word. All right, so it depends on the style that you're using. So how do you say, look at the journals that you're going to send to, see how do they use. Do they want percent to be two words, or do they want percent to be one word? But percentage is always one word. Okay, now when do you use the symbol percent, and when do you spell it out? Now, if you are writing the sentence starting with the word 30%, spell it out, please. Don't put 30 with a symbol, all right, when you're starting a sentence. But if it's in the middle of a sentence, then you could, right? But there are certain rules that I will actually be coming to as well. So normally, if you're starting the sentence with a figure, no good, all right? Spell it out. So let's say you're saying 100, all right? 100 students, spell it out. Don't put 100, okay? Spell it out because you're starting it at the beginning of a sentence. That would be the common tip, all right? The rule that we will follow, okay? So I hope that's clear.
Thank you, Ms. O.
All right, see here, all right? So in general, all right, when you're talking about numbers, yeah, this is APA style. So again, like I said, right, you need to refer to the journal. What style are they using? APA style, Harvard style, MLA style, IEEE style, right? You need to follow, okay? So normally, right, for the APA style, okay, we will spell out the numbers from 0 to 9, right? But we will use the numerals, right, if it's above 10. So 10 and above. That's the common rule. But if you're beginning the sentence, then no, all right? We will actually have to spell it out. So 10 people, T-E-N. 10 people came to the party, for example, T-E-N. Spell out numbers that begin a sentence, right? That's what I said. Now, you can also, remember, put this in your note, titles or headings, right? It should be spelled out, okay? So sentences, please spell it out, definitely. Okay, titles and headings as well. Right, now, common fractions. So should be spelled out. So for example, 1/5 of the money, 1/2 of the property, a 1/3 share, right? A 2/3 majority. Okay, now, do you notice I have hyphen here, but I don't have hyphen here? Why? Because a 1/3 majority or a 1/3 share, this is the noun, this is the adjective. All right? This is the noun, majority, this is the adjective. So it is hyphenated. But 1/5 of the money, 1/5 is not the adjective. Yeah, it's a fraction. Okay, right? So do notice when to use the hyphen, which I'll be coming to later on. All right, next one is to spell out ordinal numbers. Ordinal means words like first, second, third, fourth, and so on. All right. And of course, if it's universally accepted phrases, for example, 12 apostles. All right. The 5 pillars of Islam. Okay, you will have to spell it out. Okay, that is what is suggested by the APA style. Okay, so for more information, please go to the APA style workshops, or they actually have a blog, right? The website, and of course, if you can afford it, buy the APA style manual. All right, or I think our library has, right? Every library should have one. Proofreading for common errors. Let's move on to punctuation. Okay, I'm going to do this really very quickly. Just reminders, yeah? So what are the punctuation marks that we have? Full stop, question mark, comma, semicolon, colon, apostrophe, the inverted commas, especially for quotation marks, the hyphen, and the dash. Now, I did not put in the exclamation mark, because if you're doing formal writing, exclamation mark should not be used. Now, I have a note here for you. Do not space before or after a slash. All right. This one, yeah. What we call a diagonal, yeah. A hyphen or a dash, yeah. A hyphen is shorter, a dash is longer. Okay. So they actually, if I'm not mistaken, N dash and M dash. N dash is EN. It's shorter than the M dash. M dash is EM. So to make life simple, just put hyphen, one, right? Just one. If it's a dash, just put double hyphen, right? Then it'll become a dash. Okay. Some people are very particular. Is it an N dash or is it an M dash? All right. Because the M dash is the longest one. Okay. Now let's quickly go through this. So if you have finished your sentence, please put a full stop. Yeah. If you're asking a question, all right, in your hypothesis or something, right, make sure you have a question mark. Okay. Comma.
Miss Ho?
Yes, yes.
Question from Dr. Shazali. Would it be easier if we just change the spelling default in Microsoft Word to either British or American? And another one is from Mr. Wong. Miss Ho, may you repeat again the X and minus and X? I think this one it's a previous. The hyphen, I think, right?
The hyphen. Okay, let me see. And show the hyphen would be, I think, the one on spelling, isn't it? This one, is it? Yeah, this is the one with hyphen. Okay, hyphen here shows is an adjective. So you are telling me the share is the noun, all right? How much is the share? It's 1/3. Oops, sorry. It's 1/3. It's an adjective. 1/3 share, right? Because if you throw away the word share, right? 1/3 share. So share is the noun, 1/3 is the adjective. So that's why it's hyphenated, right? It's an adjective. Okay, but it's 1/5 of the money. 1/5 here is not an adjective, it's a fraction. 1/5, 2/5, right? But when you're using it as an adjective, a 1/3 share, it becomes adjective, so it's hyphenated. Okay, right? So there's a difference here. 1/5 of the money, right? But 1/5 share, it will be 1/5 with a hyphen. Okay, the off will not be there, right? So the other question is it easier to default? Yes, your default is American English, if I'm not mistaken, right? If you're using Microsoft Word, you can change it, yeah, set it to British English. Okay, yeah, that's what I normally do. I will set it to British English. Then when I'm done, then it goes back to UK English. It goes back to US English. Yeah, okay, all right. Yes, it's easier to default. Yeah, use the default. Comma. All right. Again, be very careful with the use of comma. All right. So I've got this. Yes, Rafidah.
I think another one. You meant adjective the third in 1/3. Yes, I think you have to refer to the sentence, the question.
Okay, 1/3 share. Yeah, 1/3 share. 1/3 share. 1/3 is the adjective. It's a compound adjective, meaning there are two words that make one adjective. 1/3. 1/3 is the adjective. Share is the noun. All right. Just like you see, beautiful girl, right? Yeah, beautiful is the adjective. Girl is the noun. So 1/3 here is the adjective. The noun is share. 1/3 is the adjective hyphenated. Yeah. All right. What else? 2/4, right? For example, if it's an adjective, it will describe a noun. Okay. Old man, for example, right? Old is adjective. Well-known singer. Well-known singer. Well-known is hyphenated. Yeah, well-known singer. Okay, so do be careful, right? I think if you're using Microsoft Word editor, it should actually highlight it for you, right? So don't worry too much about that. Okay, can I continue?
Yes, Ms. O.
Right, so when you use the comma, be careful. Like this example here, I've seen this example so many times, right? So let's eat, grandma. Let's eat, grandma. You see, where there is a pause and where there's no pause, right? Let's eat, grandma. Let's eat, grandma, right? So here, a life will be lost, right? That's it, grandma. You want to kill her and boil her and cook her and roast her, whatever. Let's eat, grandma. So you're calling your grandma, right? Grandma, let's eat. Yeah, let's eat, right? Without a comma and with the comma makes a lot of difference, isn't it? Okay, now this is another one that I saw. I read this somewhere. I can't remember where I got it from. Okay, most of the time, comma, travelers worry that their luggage will go missing. Now, if you forget to put a comma, this will become most of the time travelers worry that their luggage will go missing. Totally different, right? Do you see that? Most of the time, travelers worry. Most of the time, travelers, right? Because when we read without a comma, right? Most of the time, travelers, you know, when you're watching movies and all that, right? We have got time travelers. So very different meaning, right? So be careful where you put your comma. Now, this is very common, right? Don't forget, when you have long clauses are complete sentences actually, yeah? Do separate them with a comma. When you're presenting, try to speak clearly and fluently, all right? So without the comma, when you read, right, you still actually pause, isn't it? When you're presenting, right, we will pause automatically. So that tells you that that's where you need a comma, right? Try to speak clearly and fluently. Now, some people actually put another comma here. Not necessary, yeah? Now, insert a comma to set off exact dates. Now, do be careful. This one here is our American English. This is how you do it, right? August 25th. Therefore, you need a comma. But in British English, we don't need it because we put 25th August 2022. You don't have to put 25th August comma here, yeah? Not necessary. So if you put August 25th, yes, you need a comma. All right? Okay. So do use your commas very carefully. Okay? Just don't suka-suka put. All right, let's move on to semicolon. Semicolon is always a problem. So if you can avoid it, avoid it. All right? Okay, now, you can use a semicolon to replace conjunction if you don't want to use a conjunction. So it's a, how do you say, a replacement. It's a style of writing. But if you can, you want to use but, go ahead. Now, some students will put, the interviewer arrived late. The interviewee arrived late, comma, but the interviewer arrived early. Do you need to put a comma here? Not really necessary because it's quite short, isn't it? If it's long, then I would say yes. So if you don't want to put but, then you could always use a semicolon. All right. So we say brave people will go for the semicolon. The interviewee arrived late. The interviewer arrived early. All right. There are two connected, right, sentences, right? Very closely connected. So if you don't want a conjunction, you could use a semicolon, your style. Now, this is important. If it's a long list, then do use semicolons, right? Don't forget the following tips. Now, this is the colon, yeah? It's not a semicolon, it's a colon, 2 dots. Reach the venue earlier so that you will not panic, all right? Semicolon. Bring your original certificates, semicolon, and speak with confidence. Now, some will just say, why can't we just put a comma here and a comma here? Well, you can, but you could also put a semicolon as well. All right? So, your style. Be consistent. Don't put a semicolon here and then here you put a comma, right? That will not be correct. So be consistent. If you put comma, then comma here as well. If you put semicolon, well, semicolon here as well. All right, so do be consistent.
Okay, Miss Ho, another question from Miss Sharon Adwani. Which style of English is used most frequently for UiTM, British or American?
We teach our students British English. Yeah, we teach our students British English. But our students normally, because they use the computer to type and so on, right? They do not reset the language to British English. So it comes out with the American spelling and so on. So I always remind my students, do change the default language, all right? In UiTM, it's British English. But we have been told that we should be consistent, because if you are writing for any paper, all right, if the journal says they accept either English, British English or US English, you can use both, but be consistent. Do not mix them up, all right? Am I in the right one? I think I'm in the wrong slide. Okay, I think I'm at the wrong slide, isn't it? Semicolon done. All right, okay, next slide then. Next one. My mouse is not working very well today. I don't know why. All right, so let's go on to the colon. Colon is 2 dots. Yeah, semicolon is a dot with a comma. So that's why it's called semi. So this is just reminders, yeah? I think we all know this. So when you are going to explain something, right, after your first part of the sentence, a colon is necessary, right? Please be careful. Errors in your work will affect the reader's perceptions regarding your authority and credibility. Okay, this is more like emphasis. So you can also use it to precede a quotation. Very important, yeah? For quotations, normally we have a colon. Kennedy's historic words, I'm sure you all know this. Open the inverted commas, don't forget. Ask not what your country can do for you. See here, dash. Ask what you can do for your country. All right, so a quotation. So we introduce it with the colon, or to introduce a list, right? This is not a list, yeah? This is the list. Please buy the following: a loaf of bread, comma, a bottle of soy sauce, comma, 2 cans of sardines. Now, if you want, you can put another comma here, but not necessary. This extra comma, they call it the Oxford comma, all right? Or the cereal comma, they call it. And 6 packets of peanuts. So, and the sentence, put a full stop, yeah? Don't forget that. Some students, they always forget the full stop. I hope you don't. All right, let's move on then. The apostrophe, all right? Be very careful to show possession. Is it singular or plural? For example, if it's singular, it's apostrophe S, right? If it's plural, S apostrophe. Please be careful. Okay, just reminder, yeah? Inverted commas for your quotation. Don't forget, right? We normally use double quotation mark. If you have another quotation in the quotation, then it will be the single quotation mark within the double quotation. So don't make it the other way around, all right? So double quotation is the norm. But if there's something inside here where you need to have another quotation, then it would be single quotation inside the double quotation marks, all right? Or it could be something like this, when it's a title, all right, this book. When 1984, title of the book, right, by George Orwell. Okay, then you need the quotation marks as well, okay? So quotation marks, remember, open, we need to close. All right, don't forget that. Okay, just reminders. All right, hyphen, the one that we were talking about just now, right? Adjectives, yeah, here. When you join 2 or more words with a hyphen, right, to form a compound adjective. Compound means it's more than one word, right? So it precedes a noun, right? It's before the noun. One-way street, yeah, one way, hyphen. Up to date, 3 words. Up to date sources. Lump sum payment, lump sum. A to-do list, right? We always need that, right? Now, this is the one I mentioned just now. A well-known author. Well-known is an adjective describing the noun, but you will say the author is well-known. No adjective. No adjective, no hyphen. It's an adjective, yes, but it's after the noun. All right? This is before the noun. So that's the difference, yeah? English. Lots of rules to remember. All right. This one. do be careful because they have different meanings, yeah, if you do not use a hyphen. Recollect. I had to recollect my questionnaires. Recollect, remember. Recreation, all right, they did it again. Recreation, right, having fun, right, recreation time. Resign, no, resign. I had to resign, okay, they couldn't see my signature, it was not clear. I resign, I don't want to teach anymore, for example, right? Okay, so different meaning, isn't it? So that's why you need to have the hyphen there, okay? Just reminders. I'm sure you know that. Okay.
Okay, few questions, Ms. Ho.
Right, yes.
When we are writing a Malay word in one paragraph in English, how do we write the Malay word? Should it be in italics or double quote?
Depending on the style that is used in the journal, all right? So again, you need to find out. When you're not sure, look at the journal articles that are published and see whether they actually use italics, which is actually preferred now, I think, mostly. Or if you can use double quote. Now, double quote normally is actually a word that is used in a different way. Then we use a double quote sometimes or a single quote. Normally, I would use a single quote if it's used in a different way. And if it's a Malay word, normally it's italicized nowadays. So it all depends on the journal's style. You would have to actually got to check it out, all right? What is the house style for that particular journal? Okay, so I can't really tell you which is the correct one. Other questions?
I think the explanation from Mr. Muhammad. I wish to keep the Malay word in the paragraph to keep the credibility of word choice, as when it is translated to English, it may be interpreted wrongly. That's for the question. Right, another question. Can we use non-hyphen parametric approach or non-parametric approach? Which one is correct?
Non-parametric. Okay, I'm not sure about you. Some I have seen, right, they have written non-parametric as two different words, and some have written it as non-parametric with a hyphen. So again, all right, I would say that it's actually the house style. So again, I would suggest that you actually go through the journal, read the guidelines, and see the papers that are published. Do they actually put a hyphen or not? Because I've seen both used. Right? So I can't tell you which is the correct style. It depends on the journal that you're submitting to, what is the preferred style by that journal. So non-parametric, is it hyphenated or not? Please check it out, right? You should contact the journal editors if it's not in the guidelines, right? You should double confirm. Okay, that's my best advice.
Thank you, Ms. Ho.
All right, so let's continue. What time is it? Oh dear, running out of time. Use a hyphen to join a prefix, right? So this one, I'm sure you have seen this before. I'm Malaysian, pre-raya, post, right? Pre, post, and so on. What else? Prefixes, other prefixes, okay? All, X, mid, self, and the suffix elect, right? So the examples are here. And of course, when it's a compound number, all right? Like just now we had the 2/3, 1/3, those are compound numbers actually, isn't it? And they are used as adjective in that example. Here, they are not used as examples, right? But they are compound numbers. 36, 44, 72. Now, I've purposely put 44 here, all right? Do you see the spelling? 40 is F-O-R, yeah? Not F-O-U-R, 40, right? All right, let's move on very quickly. The dash. Dash is longer than the hyphen, yeah? So it's normally used to set off extra information. Normally we use it for emphasis. So don't use this most of the time, yeah? Once in a while for emphasis, all right? Okay, so what's the difference between two hyphens, which is what we call the dash, and the single hyphen, yeah? So the single hyphen is what we call, we use it for compound, right? Compound adjectives and so on, compound words. The two hyphens that are joined together, we call it the dash, and they are used normally for emphasis. All right, so an example here, right? 3 interviewees, all right? R5, R7, and R9. So you're giving the emphasis here. Which 3? Number 5, number 7, number 9, right? Declined to reveal their household income. Okay, so this is how you do it. So we don't do this very often, yeah? But if it's really necessary for emphasis, then you can do it using the dash. Okay, Capitalization, just a reminder, all right, I'm sure you all know this. The last one, this is the one that I want to point out because I see this very common, yeah, this error. I'm sure everybody knows, right? President Biden, double P, capital the P, capital the B. But when it comes to this way of writing, yeah, so Tun Mahathir Mohamad, I'm sure you all know, you need to capitalize, but Prime Minister, this way you get it wrong. They will put capital P and capital M. No. If it follows the name, it is not. The former Prime Minister of Malaysia, Malaysia definitely, right? Okay, but here it is not capitalized because it is not before the name. President Biden, the Prime Minister, right? If you just say the Prime Minister, it is not without the name, the Prime Minister, you do not capitalize. If you say Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, yes, you will capitalize. Okay. What else? Right. Coming to typing mistakes. If you have the editors that you use online, right? Online editors, typing mistakes normally will actually be corrected, except if it forms a word, right? For example, this one, form or from. Then they may not be able to detect the error for you. So you have to actually check it yourself, yeah? So do be very careful, all right? Have what I call the eagle eye, right? Really look at your work. So don't forget to proofread. You have what? What do you have here? Double full stop, right? Sometimes when we type, so check your work, yeah? Look for that. Now, this one, I don't know whether you know this or not, but if you type your title, especially, right, in all caps, yeah, if you make a mistake, your checker will not be able to check it for you, all right? So if you look at what we have here, how many errors can you see in this sentence here? Spell checks won't, there's an error, apostrophe is missing. Flag mistakes, double S, all right? Written, single T, wrong, all right? But it won't be flagged by your grammar checker, all right? Unless you change your setting, okay? All right? So do try to avoid, yeah, typing in all caps, all right? It's hard to read as well. So these are just reminders. Moving on to word choice. So we need to be very careful. Choose the best word, right? Because we want to make an impact, isn't it? All right, a positive impact rather than a negative impact. Because if it's an inaccurate word, it will change the meaning actually sometimes. All right, so it comes to words that have similar meanings, right? Sometimes you say, oh, the thesaurus says these are the words that I can use. But do be careful because the connotation could be different. All right. So for example, the word alternative and alternate, right? So if you look at this sentence here, they writers think they are the same, but they are not. ABC has emerged as an alternate treatment option. Alternate treatment option? No. Alternate is actually like A, B, A, B, A, B. That's alternate, right? Black, white, that's alternate. If it's an alternative, means it's another choice, right? ABC has emerged as an alternative treatment option for something. So it's either alternate, it's like a pattern, A, B, A, B, A, B, or A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D. That's alternate, right? One after the other. But alternative is either one. It's something that you can choose. It's an option, right? Alternative. Now, devised and developed, they are about the same, but they are not exactly the same. So here, if you read the sentence right, many of us will think, what's wrong with it? The researchers devised a method. You don't devise a method. You develop a method, but you devise a plan. You see the collocation? You devise a plan to overcome something, but you develop a method. All right. So some people say, they are the same. Not exactly. If you ask, how do you say, the L1 speakers, right? The speakers of English, right? The mother tongue, they will say, no, they're not the same. So choice of words. What else? More examples. Slim, thin, skinny. If I ask my student, they say, Miss, they're all the same. No, they are not. Slim has got a positive connotation. Thin is more neutral, right? Skinny has got a negative connotation. When you say, oh, Miss Ho is very slim, I will say thank you. If you say Miss Ho is very skinny, really? You know? All right, what about juvenile and youth? Very different. They mean the same, right? Young, all right? But when you say juvenile appearance, sounds negative. Youthful appearance, that sounds positive, all right? So when you pay compliments, be careful, choice of words. What about infer and imply? Normally, the students will say they are the same as, all right? When you refer to a dictionary, this is what they give you, infer, imply. But when you're writing, that is a slight difference in connotation of meaning, right? So for example, you write, based on these findings, we can infer that, right? So meaning what? That's the conclusion that you're making, right? You conclude from the available information. But if you write it this way, these findings imply that, so you are giving your suggestion, all right? Or giving a hint, right? These findings imply that, the implication, okay? Some people say, nah, they are the same. Slightly different, right? Okay, so choice of word.
Miss Ho?
Yes, question.
After word will or will be, usually have to use present tense or past tense?
When you use the word will, okay, for example, right? Will be postponed. That word postponed is actually not past tense. It's called past participle, right? Will be postponed, will be interviewed. You have the ed, right? Will be given, right? The en. So those are what we call the past participle. But when you use will sing, will run, will write, that is the base form, right? The root word, okay? That's the difference, right? Anything else?
None at the moment.
Okay, good. Let's move on then. Collocations, I've been using words that I say that they don't go together, right? So actually it's called collocations, yeah? So this one, the researchers should maintain caution, extreme caution. Maintain caution, no, right? It's exercise caution. Those words go together. Again, if you go to the concordance, it will show you what are the words that go together. We actually have collocations. There's a collocation dictionary, if I'm not mistaken, right? They actually have that. So just Google. Constructed to withstand? No, you don't say constructed to withstand. It's designed to withstand. All right, so the words that go together. So if you go to the concordance, right, you learn a lot. Actually, what are the words that go together? What are the words that collocate? Yeah. So just check it out. Don't be lazy. When you're not sure, check it out. These are just reminders. So again, words like sometime and sometime, are they the same? No, they are not, right? As one word or as two words, okay? What about number and amount, right? They are different. Number of literature, no. Literature cannot be counted, right? Number is for countable nouns. So it's the amount of literature. I see this a lot of times, yeah? Not the number of literature. So disinterested and uninterested, very different, right? Disinterested, you're not interested at all, isn't it? Yeah. Is it interested or disinterested? Okay, we always ask. So remember, disinterested party, you're unbiased. You're not taking sides. Uninterested, I don't care. All right, you're indifferent. Every day is one word and every day is two words. Very, very different. Every day, right? Something that you do every day. Which is which? Everyday workwear, one word. Every day I go to school, two words. Every day she drinks coffee, two words. All right. So all these can be checked out, yeah? They are all available online. All right. Next, valuable, invaluable. All right. They are not exactly the same, yeah? Slander and libel. Okay, I think if you're in the law faculty, you know that. Envelope and envelope with the E and without the E, they are different. All right. If you don't know them, learn them. All right. These words are important. They are not exactly the same. All right. What else? I'm going to go a bit faster because I think I'm running out of time. I have, what, 1 more hour or so? Yeah, less than 1 hour. 1 hour, slightly more. All right. What choice? Okay, this is something that I needed to point out, right? The reason why. I get this so many times. When you say reason, it's actually telling people why, right? You don't need it, right? The reason is because, not necessarily. Because when you're saying the reason, you're actually giving it, right? So the because is the reason, isn't it? So just put the reason is or the reason is that. This is actually redundant. All right, not necessary. I just had to point this out. All right. Okay, now homophones. This is something that the dictionary will tell you, all right? they are different and all that. But if you use your editor, some editors will not be able to find out, right? Will not be able to detect it for you. So words that sound the same, homophones, right, sound the same, but they actually have different meanings and different spellings, right? Let's look at some examples. Yeah, these are just some. There are plenty more in English. Yeah, some of the words here, right? Very common ones. Okay, so when you see such words, do be careful. Check it out. Are you using it correctly? Okay, so just the difference, right, of then, A-N and E-N, right? Whether, I see this all the time. Stationery, right? A and E, right? Principal, right? Loose, single S, single O, double O, right? Past with a T and with the ED. Complement with the I and the E, right? This kind of things. Do be careful, okay? So again, when you're not sure, check it out. All right, so let's move on. Malaprops, or we call it malapropism. This is something that, again, is quite common. I've come across, but how do I say this? It comes with usage, right? You should be able to avoid malapropisms if you know how to use those words properly. So a malapropism occurs when we say one word, but actually we mean another. So we have chosen the wrong word. So the unintentional misuse of the word may have an amusing effect. So examples here, these are just a few, right? There are actually a lot more, okay? So if you look at the examples that I've given here, he had a photogenic memory. Photogenic memory? Actually, you mean he had a photographic memory, all right? So people get it confused. What about the lady used a fire extinguisher? Actually, she meant the lady used a fire extinguisher, isn't it? All right. So these words, these are just some of the words that students use, how do you say, wrongly, and they can't see the error because they don't know the word, the difference, right? Because sometimes they pronounce the word the same, right? Like this one, eminent and imminent. To them, they will say eminent, or access and assess, right? Assure, insure, ensure, right? Eligible, eligible. Okay, so because the pronunciation is the same, adverse, averse, further, farther, right? Censure, censor, for example. Figment and pigment, you have a figment of an imagination. Some people will say you have a figment of imagination. All right, so be careful. All right, what's next? Redundancies, all right? The words that we use that shouldn't be there. All right, we have to try to reduce our number of words to be clear. So the example, every single person. Every single person, why not just say every person? Because when you say every, it means single, isn't it? Everyone, all right? So single is not necessary. And what about every married person? Shouldn't they do something as well? Every single person should be every married person. If there is a difference, right? Then the single is important then, single or married. So these examples here, the one in black, in bold, these are what we call the redundant ones, should be thrown away, all right? So have a look at it. Some people will ask me, what about 12 noon? Don't you always say 12 noon? No, when you say 12 noon, when you say noon, it's already understood. Noon is 12, isn't it? 12 a.m., 12 p.m., yes, but not 12 noon, yeah? Or 12 midnight. It's either a.m. or p.m. 12 a.m., 12 p.m., yes. Repeat again. If it's innovation, it's always new, right? It's always new. Comprise of, no. Consist of, yes, right? Public, isn't it always general if it's public? Now, this one, we see this all the time. Undergraduate student. If you are undergraduate, you're still a student, right? You haven't graduated yet, isn't it? Shouted. Have you ever shouted softly? So, shouted loudly? No. Whispered is always softly, right? Why do you need the word softly again? Right, what about ATM machine? The word M stands for machine, right? Automated teller machine, so double, right? LCD, display is for D, right? D for display. And result is always at the end, right? If it's a gift, it's always free. If you are a guest, you're always invited, right? Unless you are uninvited, then you put the uninvited guest. Yes. If it's unique, there's only one, right? You don't need the word most or very. Plans is always future, right? If it's a crisis, it happens suddenly, right? If it's something that you import, it's always foreign. When you merge, it's always more than one, right? So you don't need the word together. Instinct is always natural. Do you have unnatural instinct? Routine is something that you do all the time, right? It's something regular. So you don't need the word regular routine. Custom is something that is usual, right? It's something that you follow all the time. So you don't need usual. Opinion is always personal opinion, right? If you're an expert, surely you're knowledgeable. If it's appearance, it's always outside, right? What you see, right? So be careful. All right, let's move on. Transitions or linkers or signals, discourse markers, right? Up to you, right? What do? They help readers to understand the logic of how our ideas fit together, the flow actually, right? How one word is connected to another, how a phrase is connected to another, how a sentence is connected to idea, or how a paragraph is connected to another, all right? So suitable transitions are needed for logical connections, right? For the different sections of our papers, right? So this is according to the University of North Carolina, yeah? Now, if you go to the University of Manchester, they have this phrase, academic phrase bank, very useful, all right? So they have this phrase bank that will actually have lots of transitions. And they also have a phrase bank for introduction, for writing the discussion section, for writing your finding section, conclusion section, and so on. So very useful. So if you haven't been there yet, please go and check it out, okay? So transitions, now examples.
Yes, so question from Mr. Wong. How about original copy and pretty ugly?
Original copy and pretty ugly. Adding the word pretty, you are giving it the adjective, right? So if it's formal writing, we would try to minimize the use of adjective. Pretty ugly, the word pretty is an adjective emphasizing the ugliness. Very ugly, isn't it? Pretty ugly. Ugly actually means negative. So when you want to add the emphasis, it's very ugly, it's quite ugly, it's pretty ugly. Yeah. But I would say that if you are using it for formal writing, pretty would not be suitable. All right. What was the other one? Sorry. Besides the word pretty ugly, what was the other word that was mentioned?
Original copy.
An original copy. So if you say it's the original copy, so you're saying that there are other copies, right? The photostated copy, original copy. If it's a copy, when you want to show that it's the original that you're referring to, we most of the time we will say original copy, right? The original version, isn't it? Right? And we have the photostated version, or we have the latest version. So when you want to differentiate, yes, you could say that, right? The original copy, the original version. A copy is always how do you say, because you could have many copies, right? So it's the photostated copy, it's the handwritten copy, it's the typewritten copy, right? So which kind of copy, all right? So those are adjectives, okay? Yes. Can I go on?
Yes, Miss Ho.
All right, okay, now this is taken from the Writing Center, yeah, from University of North Carolina. They have a very good section, all right, on writing. So if you are stuck, you can always go there. You could also go to Purdue University, actually, yeah, very good section on writing. So these are just examples. So when you're not sure what to use for the relationships that you want to show, these are the ones that you could actually refer to, all right? So do not hesitate to go and Google and find out. So what about sprawling sentences? Yeah, we're coming almost to the end. What are sprawling sentences? They're actually hard to read sentences. Sentences which are actually too long with many phrases and clauses. Phrases are incomplete, yeah? Clauses are actually complete. So when you're sprawling sentences, when we reach the end, right, we actually may have forgotten what it was in the beginning. So that's why it's not advisable. All right, now let's look at an example. Okay, the interview was planned for Monday, 8 August, but the lecturer had to attend a meeting on behalf of a dean, so it was rescheduled for the following Thursday, and then we transcribed the interview before the data was analyzed. It's a very long sentence, isn't it? So we call that the sprawling sentence. So it's better if you can rewrite it and it becomes something like this. The interview, which had been planned for Monday, 8 August, was rescheduled for the following Thursday. The interview was then transcribed for the data to be analyzed. Much better, isn't it? Agree? Right? Easier to understand, right? So let's look at another example. This one I've taken from an UCLA. So the lack of rainfall has caused a severe water shortage. So people have to conserve water every day. And they also have to think of new ways to reuse water, but the situation is improving. Pretty long. Now, let's rewrite it and it will become, the lack of rainfall has caused a severe water shortage, right? It's the same one. Now, although the situation is improving, right? From this one here, people have to conserve water every day and think of new ways to reuse water. It's much better now, isn't it? It's easier to understand, all right? So when you find that you have written a sentence that's very long, try to break it up, all right? You can combine the sentences into, you can break them up into shorter sentences so that it's easier to understand, all right? So this is an example from UCLA. Another one that I have here from Sage publication. All right, so you can go to Sage, you can go to Inago, and so on. Right, okay. Motor vehicle accidents are a leading cause of deaths among adolescents because adolescents often exceed speed limits. Driving is often done in conjunction with drinking alcohol, and seat belts are used rarely. That's too long, right? So when you revise it, it can become, motor vehicle accidents are a leading cause of deaths among adolescents because adolescents often drive too fast, while drunk, and without wearing seatbelts. Isn't that easier to understand? Right? So throwaway words, try to minimize, all right? If you can write it in 2 words, why write it in 4 words? If you can write it in 1 word, why write it in 2 words? All right, so make sure that you are brief, but you're concise, you are clear. All right, so it's a skill. It's a skill. You need to work on it. All right, choppy sentences. Okay, this is the last part actually, all right, on the grammar section and so on. Too many sentences in a row that begin with a simple subject. Now, example. This is taken from UCLA as well. Wind is an enduring source of power. Water is also an unlimited energy source. Dams produce hydraulic power. They have existed for a long time. Windmills are relatively new. Very choppy, isn't it? No transitions at all. Very hard to read, right? Very choppy. So when you revise it, try to use transitions. Both wind and water are enduring sources of power. Dams have produced hydraulic power for a long time, but windmills are relatively new. So much easier, all right, to read, all right, to understand. The flow is there, all right? You see how the flow is there by using the correct transitions, all right? All right, both and, but, all right? So the transitions are your very good friends for your flow of ideas. Other examples from UCLA, our results were inconsistent. The program obviously contains an error. A revision of the program is required. So once it's revised, a revision of the program is required because it produced inconsistent results. Much better, isn't it? From 3 sentences, it becomes 1. The boy asked his father a question. The boy is 5 years old. The question was about death. Revision. The 5-year-old boy asked his father a question about death. So much easier to read, right? 3 sentences to become 1, right? This looks more polished. Definitely. Okay. Proofreading. Other examples. Bears emerged from hibernation in the spring. They wander through wetlands. They feed mainly on grasses. Sounds like, primary school students writing, isn't it? So when you revise it, when bears emerge from hibernation in the spring, they wander through wetlands and feed mainly on grasses, right? Much better. Okay, so this example is from, I can't remember, UMN. Can't remember what does it stand for. This one is again from UMN. My aunt is very strict with my cousin. She expects her to study all the time. 2 sentences, right? Let's make it into 1. My aunt is very strict with my cousin, expecting her to study all the time. You see, just by using this word, changing it, all right, you join them together and it sounds much better. I was exhausted. I stared at the page. I was unable to comprehend a single word. Exhausted. I stared at the page, unable to comprehend a single word. Much better, isn't it? Right? It's more polished. So all this takes skills, right? You need to practice. You need to really work on it. Right, now, just on a few words, right, about using free online tools. We have the grammar checkers. I'm sure you're all very familiar with this. And the other one is, I would like to introduce the reference checkers if you are not familiar with it. I find it pretty useful for proofreading purposes. Okay, let's look at the grammar checkers first. Grammar checkers, there are so many online that you can use. I think the famous ones are like Grammarly, Ginger, all right? There are a few more. Although they are very helpful, all right, I would say that you should use them with caution, all right, because they are not 100% accurate. They are prone to errors as well, all right? So even if you have used the grammar checkers, you need to still proofread your work manually, right? Do it very carefully with an eagle eye. And if possible, right, if you have colleagues or someone who has got a strong command of the language, get them to reread for you, because a different pair of eyes, right, will be able to detect errors that we overlooked, that, you know, we read it so many times and yet we couldn't see it, all right? I'm sure you understand, right, what I mean. So if there are students with me today, I would like you to remember, right, you should not use the online grammar checkers when your language is being assessed. All right, so you can do it for class work and so on, right, where you're just practicing your writing and so on. But when you're sending up the assessment, the work is meant for assessment, that you are not allowed to use the online grammar checkers, all right, because you have had your practice already in class, you have used the online grammar checkers, you have learned what are your common errors and so on, you are aware of your errors. So when you are doing it for assessment purposes, then please be honest, yeah, write it all on your own. Do not use the grammar checker. Okay, all right. So which free online tool to use? Now, recently I did a small scale research and I wrote a paper on it. It's been accepted for publication. I think somewhere in December it will come out. So I looked at Quillbot, right? The famous one, the Grammarly, and also Ginger, which has been around for a long time. And I found out, right, through my small scale research that actually, Quillbot is much better than Grammarly, but a lot of people prefer Grammarly. So I'm using the free version, yeah? So the Quillbot, Grammarly, and Ginger, I did the research and I found out that overall, Quillbot is actually much better. So if you look at the categories that I used, right, undetected errors, Quillbot had the least. Only 31 errors were undetected. Whereas if you look at Grammarly, it was, what, 52? And Ginger was like 72. So that is unacceptable. Okay. What else? And the others. So I would say that I would suggest that you use Quillbot. All right. So let's move on to what it can do. Okay, I'm sure you know that they are about the same, right? They check your spelling, they check punctuation and so on. Quillbot checks malapropisms as well. All right. I've seen that Done. Now, but what are the errors? So like I've mentioned, right, it's not all the time correct. They are prone to errors like this. Yeah, this is the sentences I used to check, and this is what I found. All right, they could not actually correct it. Okay. Another example that I have is this one. All right, they actually provide incorrect suggestions. Okay. And they also have unnecessary suggestions sometimes. So don't accept everything that they ask you to change, yeah? So the Oxford comma, this one, they say it's wrong. They ask you to put in a comma. Not necessary, isn't it? Unless it's a really long sentence, all right? So do be careful when you're using it, right? So I always say, user beware. Now, let's go on to the reference checker. It's almost time already, actually. So I'm coming to the end, actually, yeah? So not to worry. So this is what we call a reference checker because it checks your in-text citation together with your reference list, all right? So it's called reciteworks.com. If you haven't been there, you can check it out. So we use it, right? I have used it a couple of times. It works very well for me. So some people think that if they use Mendeley, they use EndNote and so on, you know, it should be fine. But sometimes they actually make mistakes as well. So to use Recite, you need to be careful as well. You need to have your heading, whether it's references, if you're using APA style, or you put works cited for MLA style. You know, you must have a heading here. And then you need to make sure that each entry that you have, right, for your different citations, it must be on its own line, and there must be a line break between the entries, all right? So it must be clearly shown so that the machine, the tool, can actually check it for you, whether the citations in your text and the references match, okay? So you need to be careful as well. So this one. This is what it's able to do. I've taken this from the website. The possible issues, right? Spacing, stylistic issues, you know, they will actually highlight it for you. So what is nice is this. When your references are not in alphabetical order, right? Sometimes, I don't know why, but it happens, yeah? We use sort A to Z, right? But sometimes it happens. They will tell you, the machine will tell you that your entry is in the wrong place and you have to either move it up or down and actually tell you how many to move. Then there will be a small number by the side. So I find that very useful, all right? So if you try it out and see, right? And see whether it helps you or not to check your work. So this is taken from exactly from the website, yeah? It is designed to be overly cautious, actually. So they want to be very sure that, you know, they check everything. So sometimes when they see a 4-digit number, let's say they see the word 2000, right? They automatically think they will like highlight it to you and say that, you know, is it the correct date or not? But actually maybe it's just a number, all right? 2,000 students. So when they see the word 2,000, they may actually highlight and they ask you to check, you know, whether it's actually correct or not. So it's overly cautious, but I think it's better to be safe than sorry, isn't it? All right. Okay. Oops, what did I do? Got it. All right. So I've come to the end. So if there are any other questions, please feel free to ask. So I would like to end by saying that proofreading is actually a skill that you can learn and you can develop and you can become better. So like in English, we say, right, practice makes perfect, isn't it? Right. So it comes through practice. So do not be afraid to ask for help, all right? Google or ask your colleagues, or if you are a student, ask your lecturer, because we are all there to help, all right? We are all ready to help you. So if you think you can afford, you want to pay for proofreading service, go ahead. But I think that with all the online tools available, you can actually learn, right, to do it on your own. Okay, so that's all from me. And what is the time? Have I gone too much? 10 minutes or so. So any last questions?
All right, thank you, Ms. Ho. We have one more question from Mr. Wong. Sorry, last question. May I know how much per page is a reasonable price for professional proofreading? Any recommendation of professional proofreading for our writing? I think we need to pay to get the professional service. All
right, yes. It depends on where you're living, all right? If you're in KL, probably it'll be more expensive. If you come to you search for professional services, right? I would suggest that you also read the reviews as well, or you refer to your friends who have actually used those services and see whether they are good or not. Some actually are quite sloppy, all right? And then you should also know whether they are familiar with which style. And because let's say you're doing a thesis or a dissertation, right? They should be following the house style. Let's say if you're from MU, they have their own style. If you're from UKM, they also have their house style. So you make sure that you need to make sure that if you're going for those professional service, they are actually familiar with those styles. If let's say if you're somewhere in Kedah, for example, right? You could always use UiTM Kedah. Go to our UiTM Kedah website. We actually provide proofreading services at a reasonable price. My colleagues are in the committee and they would be very happy to help you out, right? You can always go online. I have not used any professional services. I have always done my own proofreading. When I send it to journals, normally I don't get serious mistakes. Most of the time, no mistakes, very minor ones, that we missed. So I would say that if you polish your proofreading skills, you actually do quite well, right? So no serious errors. So professional services, you should actually ask around. You should ask around. I really don't know good ones, except myself. No,
Okay,
I don't charge.
Another question, I think it's similar to the last answer given by Ms. Ho. Do you offer thesis proofreading service, Ms. Ho?
I have proofread for friends for free. I normally don't like to charge because I don't like to work, let's say, in a hurry, right? So, I mean, if you give it to me, you say you can take your time, then I'll read it for my friends for free. But if you want it to be done, let's say within a week or two, normally I will decline. So I normally do not charge unless it's like a special request from a friend or a colleague that says, oh, my nephew or my niece, is going to submit the thesis or dissertation. Can you please do it for, okay, then I will charge, because it's the relative, it's not my own friend. If it's my own friend, normally I do it for free, right? I've proofread dissertations and thesis for friends for free. Okay, all right. Anything else?
I think that's all for the Q&A session.
Okay.
Right. So thank you very much, Ms. Ho, for your well-informed, well-versed sharing and also presentation. Very interesting presentation. I think we learned a thing or two. I mean, not a thing or two, I would say, right? But before we leave, reminding on the attendance, do fill in the form. I think the organizer will definitely close it once we finish with our webinar. And could everyone turn on and switch on your camera for the photo shoot session? I mean, a quick one. It's for documentation purpose anyway, right? So let me convey my appreciation to the speaker, of course, for sharing your knowledge, right? And also my appreciation to all of the attendees for today's webinar. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for your commitments, especially for spending your time with us. All right, so on count of three, beautiful face, handsome faces. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, another one. Okay. This one with the love, small love. Okay, 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you everyone. Take care. Happy proofreading. Bye. See you some other time.
Thank you.
Enjoy your lunch everyone.
So, thank you, Madam Rafidah.
Okay.